I'm Angie Graham, and here's the story. We're talking about nursing, healthcare, leadership, recovery, and senior living. The show brings the best in the industry to you because it's about you. I'm Angie Graham, and we're talking about it. A place for mom. Let's talk about them today. Well, let's start with the legislation that's going to be introduced in the state of Wisconsin. And then I will fill you in on all the backstory here with placement agencies such as A Place for Mom. So the state of Wisconsin is going to be looking at legislation that requires placement agencies to disclose how they're getting paid, because they promote themselves as a free service when in fact, behind the scenes, they do get paid. And are they really giving you a fair option? All of those things are things to think about. But let's talk a little bit about what a placement agency is. So A Place for Mom, we've seen the commercials. They've got Joan London, she's talking about finding a nice place for your loved one and this free service and the things they do. We've seen the commercials. When I first started in this industry as a marketing person, I knew the representatives from A Place for Mom. I seen them a lot at the meetings, and it was kind of an interesting concept to me of what they did and how they got paid, because they were kind of like, wanted to portray themselves as partners with a really hefty fee. So how it really works is they contract with assisted living companies, so such as the one that I work for example. Back then we were contracted with them and we used their service. So they would bring us a potential lead or someone who was looking for services, and when that person moved in, we paid them a fee. Now, when I first started with the company, the fee was about half of the first month's admission. So back then, because we're dating myself 16 years ago, that fee was anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500, roundabout. As the years progressed and we continued to be in contract with them, they would revise their contract, and the contract then would ask for more and more for referrals. So how do they find people? Well, typically you go to their website, you enter in all of your information. They also ask for the budget of your loved one. This is the way they figure out if you're qualified. So to be qualified for them to get paid, you have to be a private pay. What that means is that your loved one has to be able to pay privately for assisted living services. If your loved one doesn't have enough monthly income or asset to privately pay, and they need assistance from family care or Medicaid, then you are not qualified for them to make the referral, and typically they would not get paid. So how does this work? Well, what they do is they take all of your information that you give them, and then what they call a senior advisor will call you. They'll ask more questions, and from there, they take all of your information and they send it to everyone in the area that you're looking, all the assisted livings. And then brace yourself, because you're about to be called by a number of different marketing or salespeople or executive directors. And this often caught people by surprise. They did not know that A Place for Mom was going to share their information. And sometimes when I'd make those calls to those families, they were angry. So once I got the lead from A Place for Mom, I always made a point to try to call right away, because I wanted to be the first one to call. Because if I was the last one to call by that time, they were usually angry. They didn't realize that all these people were going to be calling them. And they also didn't understand that there was a fee that was going to be paid. So the question is, are they really sending you to the best assisted living? They're sending your information out to all of these companies that are going to pay them. What if there's an assisted living in the area that's not contracted with them? They may still be on their list. But here's the thing. They have an internal scoring system. So just like you go out to Google and the star rating, Well, they have an internal star rating on their system that they control. So how does that work exactly? Is it really unbiased? Are they controlling the stars of companies that aren't contracted with them? Perhaps they're lower score ratings? So here's the thing, is if you're working with a company like this, wouldn't you like to know that they're going to be getting paid thousands of dollars if your loved one moves into a building? And perhaps, since they're getting a percentage of the fee, they're not going to refer you to the best place, but maybe the most expensive, where they can get the biggest payday? Yeah, doesn't it sound all like a scam? And as the years tick by and we used this service and we were paying more and more fees, their fee schedules changed. So it went from being half of the cost of the admission to the first full month. So your loved one moves into the assisted living, maybe the first month for them to be there, let's just say it's $5,000. So the first month, a place for mom gets $5,000. That went on for several years. That was the fee schedule. Then eventually they wanted more money, and the fee schedule went from the first full month's rent to the month and a half. So now they get the $5,000 plus half of the next month, which was another $2,500, so $7,500 for making a referral. Now that's just based on if the admission was $5,000. It really depends on, the cost of the assisted living that they are going to, push you to move into, basically. So if your mom moves into the highest assisted living and she burns through all of her money quicker than had you known about maybe one that was less expensive and in a good area with a good reputation, those funds would have lasted longer. So it increases the tax burden on those that go on Medicaid that much quicker, or family care when they run out of their private pay funds. The other thing that they did with their contract to providers, if you're contracted with them, is they said that if we send you a lead, we get paid for life. So what that means is someone could have done a search on a place for mom for their loved one, and let's say they didn't need to move them for another 5 years. Well, even if we ended our contract with them, they're still going to get paid. So I don't know. It seems like a company that is, for the lack of better terms, extremely greedy. And do they really have the best interest in the people that they're helping in mind? That would be the big question. As providers, we really felt that these companies are not the greatest option for families. Most of these senior advisors have never even been in these buildings. How do they know how good the care is or the service is? And how are they really rating their own internal star rating when they are putting together all of this information? And that internal star rating that they have, is it really accurate? And as the daughter with a mom who is 87, I am smart enough, bright enough, and I think most of the consumers are smart enough and bright enough to go do their own research right on Google nowadays. If I'm looking for assisted living in Madison and maybe even near me, all I got to do is talk to Google, and they're going to give me a whole lot of options with star ratings that I know are consumers that have left reviews on those individual places. And now I can set up my own tours and go visit them. And I don't have to worry about whether I'm being sent to the highest price place or whether places that may be a good option are being omitted because they're not contracted to pay out these fees. So as you can tell, there's a lot of behind the scenes kind of really predatory things that go on with getting consumers to, pick assisted livings where these agencies are going to get paid. Now, it's not just a place for mom. I mean, that's the big one. And they own at least one other online placement company that I am aware of. Caring.com, I believe, but don't quote me 100%. I believe they own that one. They could own others. There are also local people that call themselves senior provider or senior options that also follow in the same footsteps, these predatory practices of helping them find a place for their loved one for a fee. And again, it's free of charge, nothing that they're going to charge you, but they are going to steer you to places that are going to pay them. That's what they're not telling you. And so buyer beware with this. In about 2020, as the company that I work for, we were contracted with A Place for Mom and Caring.com at that time. We really took a look at the cost to us as an organization and what we were paying for these fees. And we were seeing less and less of a benefit of being contracted. The consumer overall were telling us that they weren't happy to be called by numerous other companies. Our executive directors were tired of following up on these leads because as they get people that are supposedly through these placement agencies, they're upset that their names and their information is being shared. So it was really becoming difficult to want to work with them at that point as an assisted living company. So in 2020, we took a look at what we were spending and we opted out. We ended our contracts with these placement agencies. And the amount of money that we were sending them every year, and I mean, that goes on the consumer cost. It may be, free up front, but there's always a cost. It has to be added on the back end. And we just felt that we could market ourselves using Google and that the consumer was getting smarter to these placement services. And at that point, there were hospitals that were referring people to use those placement agencies or other places. And since that time, I've seen them moving away from using those placement services. And because the consumers are getting smarter, they can just go out and find your own information. You don't have to be using that. So my recommendation, if you're looking for senior living, is to do your own research. Go out, take a look at the reviews that are on Google, look at the company website, look at their social media posts and what they have going on. And most importantly, visit the community and talk to the people that are there, talk to the staff that are there, talk to the other residents that are there, and get your own opinion on where a good place to be is. Because you don't know if a senior advisor, when they're talking to you, are just sending you to the highest price place where they're going to get the biggest payday. Because that is their motivation in the end, is to get paid. So keep that in mind. And I think the trends overall with placement agencies and working with these placement agencies, we're trending in a different direction as consumers. A lot of consumers have become smart to what this really is. And it is not a reliable source or a reliable way to find a place for your loved one. That is for you to do your own research. So buyer beware. I know there's a lot of options out there in these communities, and as the need continues to increase, it's going to be more and more important to do your research with especially with staffing struggles and things that are out there. You want to put your loved one in a place that you are confident that they are going to get the best care option possible. And also, if there's concerns with costs, really taking a look at the scope of costs, because it can be all over the place. And also there's hidden costs that you really have to be aware of as far as levels of care and things like that. So when you are inquiring about costs, make sure that you inquire. It's usually an additional cost on top of a base rent. So depending on services that are involved, make sure that you get all of that information up front. And again, you're your best advocate for your loved one. Don't leave it to some stranger on the internet that's going to tell you the best place to go. There's a lot better options out there, researching it yourself. Well, again, thank you for joining me.